Hello, and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who felt like he was about to die from total starvation.
Tim Longo.
I think you at least got that far.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We are, of course, playing some Cave Story.
Save Kazuma, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. So it is. I was trying to remember. I don't always know where I take the quotes from, although that was pretty close to the top of the page of things I wrote down. So I don't take a lot of notes, but I have to write down the thing I'm going to put in the intro. That was this week. But yeah, we're kind of at two different spots. I mean, and they're traditional spots for us. I finished the game, and Tim, not so much. He could see the end maybe from where he is, but he has not. He's not finished the game. He is, however, fighting. Well, you tell them what they're fighting. I told you were going to fight these last week.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel bad about it. Yeah, so I'm as you said, it feels like how you described the location that I'm at does feel that way now that you mention it. But I'm fighting the dragons who've hatched from the eggs in the egg corridor. So kind of gone over hill and dale, done quite a few zones, and yeah, lots of level design and world stuff that I want to talk about. But because I still really do love the game in many ways, but this particular boss has been a wall for me. And I guess, like you said, it obviously I knew I was going to come back to the egg, deal with the egg somehow. I'm kind of bummed that these baby dragons have hatched and I'm killing them all, to be honest. But I guess that's what you do with the dragons. I guess it's just them being babies and coming from eggs makes it worse for me. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. But they're killing me right now. There's a twin. Are these the ones that came out of the 0-0 egg then?
No, they're not.
Okay, these are different ones. Okay,
These
so
are, yeah.
Anyway, so I'm killing these twin, or I'm fighting these twin ones, and I've hit a wall there. So that means I have gone back to the village, and then it leads you back to a kind of, so it feels like things are escalating because the eggs have hatched. There was some sort of big explosion that happened there, a robot told me, and so it definitely feels like a full circle, and it feels like the last section is coming.
Yeah,
although I don't know how long it is, but it sounds like you are you finished it, or you finished it, right? You did finish it.
Yeah, I did.
But it sounds, as you described it to me, which worries me as far as me finishing it. Sounds very Mega Man-y to me.
Yeah, the end's a bit of a slog. It is. I mean, there's some good stuff. There's some good, more adventuring stuff that comes next. So some of it's very cool and has a lot of the charm that we're going to talk about some more tonight. And continues that vibe. There's some great stuff there, but then you get kind of to you're going to the last battle here. You go through a cave that's called the Final Cave. That's the name of that level. You're in the Final Cave, and then you go and you fight. You have a checkpoint, and then you fight a series of bosses. There's no checkpoints in between them, so if at any point you fail, then you start from the checkpoint, and that is a slog.
That's rough.
Yeah, it's rough, and the strategy. You're fighting a series of bosses. Each of them basically have phases, of the fight. So it's not even like you feel like you're fighting one boss. It's like you're fighting a boss, but it goes through 3 major changes. Then you fight another boss that goes through 2 changes, and then you fight another boss that has that one's a little murkier, but the final boss, is like a little bit, a little bit more, very difficult, but more straightforward in a way. And actually, it is easier than the fights beforehand because there's more. I don't know what you'd call them, but I guess in like League of Legends way, there's like more, minions or whatever that you can get health drops from. So you
Oh
actually
yeah, right.
you can sort of heal yourself as you're going. So as
You
long as you
can
can get to
jungle,
that one, yeah, you can.
as
Yeah,
they
exactly.
say.
Is that what they say? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I've never played League, but yeah, there's you basically once you realize you can do that, it actually makes that a lot easier. But getting there, it's like I got there. I think I beat it the second time I got to it, but getting there was a constant struggle. Might have been the third time. I spent tons and tons of time getting through the first two bosses, and it was just exhausting. I mean, it's just like, I was literally several hours today, of just like beating my head against that wall. At a certain point, I was like, maybe I should go back and see if I can find more health, pickups, because I didn't strenuously. I got quite a few. I have 42, I think, hit points in my save. My original save from 8 years ago, I had 45. Um, but I didn't feel like I hadn't found, a bunch. There might be a lot more out there that I don't know about, but those are kind of it's a little different from Metroid, where you really have a sense of where they are, and there might even be a point where they get marked on your map too, when you can see them in the later ones, in like a Metroid Prime or
Hmm.
something like that. So you also you have a sense of where they are. Here, it's like, well, if you talk to this person, or you talk to their pet, or shoot this one square, here, or you jump into this space that, you didn't know was really a, empty space. They're pretty hidden. So there might be a lot of them and I didn't find them. Um, but I didn't feel underpowered, especially considering my earlier thing. So I was like, just really frustrated today of like, man, like, really? I mean, I finally figured out what I really needed to deliver on was like do really well on that first boss. The second one I can handle. And then I think at some point you pick up like a potion that's like basically an extra life you can drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully you have that. Hold on to that. I'm recommending.
Oh, too late.
Oh, are you drinking it in the Twin Dragons?
No, I had already. I tend to use
Oh,
those things pretty quickly. If they
hmm,
give them to me,
hmm.
then I assume they've given them to me for a reason, so I will use them fairly soon. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? It's like
I don't remember how you get that, and if you can
the
get it
old
refilled.
the witch, or not the witch, but the
Oh
older
yeah, Jenka or
woman,
something like
Jen,
that.
yeah, she gave it to me.
Okay,
I think, yeah.
okay. Yeah,
Um,
that sounds right
before
then.
she died, yeah, or whatever
Oh
happened to
yeah, so
her.
no more for you.
Yeah, I mean, I figured that it was introduced, item. I figured that there would be a way to get more of them or something. Maybe they're hidden around. I
Yeah,
don't
it
know.
it may be possible, but
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know. I didn't come across anything that made me think that there was, but that I didn't exhaustively explore the final area, the final kind of main big area that happens after that Twin Dragons fight. So it's
mm,
possible somebody in there might be able to help you out with that.
yeah.
That would be good.
Well,
Uh,
all of your topics as far as the ending, and I think the general sense of it. I mean, I think heavily applies. We talked about this a bit in pre-show, but it heavily applies to the series. I think, as far as being an indie game,
mhm.
I don't, we don't know how much help they got from, say, Nintendo or something, but probably not very much, if at all.
Well, none. It was a
Um,
Windows project
oh
early.
yeah, no, but I meant once it started being ported to their platforms,
Oh,
like,
later.
do
Oh,
they do
yeah.
they have any, like Treehouse? Sometimes Treehouse gets involved with particular sort of like very third party games that they are, quote unquote, partners with, so to
Hmm.
speak. And then Treehouse will actually play the game, give feedback, help with balancing and tuning and stuff. But who knows if that happened here. Um, but
Treehouse is not thanked in the credits, I will say. So
yeah, so that's a really good point, and that's likely not. And Nintendo probably would have made much more of an endorsement if they were involved. I'm trying to think of a good example. Um, like I would bet with Hollow Knight and
hmm.
um,
And
Silk
the Silk
Song that
Song,
they
yeah.
are much more, you know, Or for instance, that new that new From Software game, I bet, right? Or Bayonetta is a good example, right? Bayonetta was ended up becoming two or three was
3.
an exclusive,
Yeah, 3.
so they would have been more involved with that. But
In fact,
so
I have 3 for the Switch.
yeah. Well, I think that's the only place you can play it.
Yeah, it's
Anyway,
the only place you can get it. Although at the time I bought it, I was like,
Calamity will
"Why am I
correct
getting
us.
this?" Because I didn't finish 1. But
Yeah,
now I have 1, 2, and 3 for the Switch, so, I can play them
yeah,
anytime, I guess,
yeah.
until Nintendo
Well,
decides I can no longer download it. So
it's their right. That's their choice.
that's
Yeah. So
their
I
choice.
mean, the obvious macro point I'm making is just because this is in the indie space, and because it is a very yes game, and because of the influences and what he wanted to do with the game, this feeling very kind of Mega Man-y to me, as far as like the hockey stick ramp that I think I'm starting to feel now. Because I actually felt, though, yes, I'm playing on easy, playing on normal or hard makes me have hives
Yeah,
thinking about it
nope.
because I can imagine what that would be like. Which again,
Pretty sure
that's
I played
that.
it on normal to begin with, and
Yeah, good for
yeah.
you. Yeah,
Mm.
but that's
No,
some
good for you.
people's thing, right? Like, and that's the genre that this is. So I'm not judging that. It's just I'm still playing Souls games, so I definitely understand the
Yeah.
allure to that. But 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 also the downside, the challenge. I won't say downside, but the challenge in an indie game space, especially with one developer, is what is the right difficulty ramp for the end of a game.
Yeah.
How do you assess that? And this game got so many ports and so many versions that you know I would assume that this one we're playing the plus version probably got some sort of iteration.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe this is exactly as it was, but um, yeah, it's tricky. It's really hard when you don't have that kind of support, whether it's playtesting or QA or whatever it is, to like
Yeah,
really nail
and
that.
if you're playing it every day for 5 years, you know,
Yeah.
your sense of what easy is, not gonna be accurate to what easy should actually be. And at the time, coming out in 2004, like we had barely started to tackle difficulty in AAA, so I mean, we were starting to, people were experimenting with dynamic difficulty. Um, I think 2004, and it wasn't on our list, but Resident Evil 4 came out around that time, and that had dynamic difficulty. It's hidden from you, but they have it. And I think we talked about that even
Hmm.
on the series we did. But there's definitely, I think, our friend Jamie Fristrom said, a few years later in a article, blog post or something like that, like, your easy should be push button win game. Like, people want easy, they should get it, should be easy.
Hmm.
So, and I mean, so it's ahead of that time, I guess, is my point. It's ahead of the time where people are saying, no, if you're going to say something is easy, it should be easy. So that's,
Yeah.
people still get this wrong, as I was talking about in pre-show. So
Well, and because I mean, I totally, and again, I'm these criticisms or analyses are coming from love because I definitely still like the game a lot, and I can see why it's a sort of at least a cult classic, if not from in the indie space, but just in general, especially for Nintendo platform games, third party. So I think it's really a special game and almost a miracle in a way of how good it is. Being due to its history. Um, but also I can definitely see the lineage here, and I guess to the forgiveness it would get because of its influences and its
mm,
goals. Like he set out to make a game that he probably loved the class, the ones that he was influenced by. Mega Man's a great example that we get we get a lot of crap for not finishing and why we didn't finish, and those who listen who love that series, there's a mastery that comes with it, I've witnessed it. I've witnessed Kaon
Yes,
play
we've
those
watched it.
games.
Yeah, yeah,
So I really appreciate that that audience for those games, and this is one of those for sure. Like we talked about, like even the character design for him, like he's such a hybrid mixture of of Mega Man, because it's I've gotten, obviously I'm to the point in the story where it's very clear he's a robot. Um, and there's a history to why he was created and all this stuff, but then he's got a little hat on, and that has some, it's red, and I know, I think, is it Earthbound, does he have a hat on
he
too?
does. Yeah, he has
Yeah,
a
but
red
of
ball cap,
course
I believe. Yeah,
Mario, and yeah, so it's just, so you can kind of see, I guess, what I'm getting at in a bad way is just there's a hardcoreness to that you can see in the game. And what previously, I think last episode I mentioned, and I still consider it a bit of a brilliant design choice, but now has come back to make me realize that it also is an extremely punishing one, is what what it means to get hit, what it means to take
yeah,
damage in the game. There's
yeah,
actually a double punishment there.
yeah,
And I don't think the hit feedback is at the quality level of a Nintendo game. So there's a lot of times when, especially in a boss battle, so chaotic, um, I'm not even completely knowing that I'm getting hit. So you're losing power in your weapons, and so it's that multiplying negative effect of every time I lose a level in my weapon, I'm less effective against the boss.
yeah,
So that curve is going to go down quickly as far as like my failure, because I'm not, you're losing, you're losing not just your life but also your effectiveness. So it's a really interesting, for me as a takeaway. It's a really interesting design mechanic, um, that I think he's really onto something there.
yeah,
I'm just wondering what the modern version of that is, because it's really harsh. But again, in that maybe Soulsian way, which probably this game had some. I'm sure they were playing these sorts of games themselves. um, that's sort of the point.
yeah,
I know that there's some mutators and there's some ways you can play this game to make it harder for yourself, right? Speed runs, and I think they even have some stuff built into the menu. Um, of course, you don't have to pick up the pickups. I'm sure people play that way, right? I know that there's some achievements I looked up that reflect playing in the hardest core of ways, right? Like Hollow Knight does.
oh wow.
Um, yeah. So,
Yeah,
um,
I mean, so I finished the game. I opened the challenges just to see what was in there, and only one of maybe 8 were were in there, and I was like, "Huh, like what did I not do to not unlock the other 7?" So, it was very strange to open up challenges and have there, and it wasn't like the first one. It was like the 3rd one down, and then a ton of like question mark, question mark, question marks that I couldn't access. I didn't do any challenges because after a couple of hours of hammering and trying to
no,
because I was having that problem of like, okay, I actually don't want to switch weapons on the first boss even if I get knocked down, because I'm going to want to have that to go to on the
ah,
second boss. Like I was like having to strategize
that's
to that
interesting.
level. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of cool though. I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
a
I
f-
mean, if the balancing were a little just a little more in my favor, it would have been triumphant, of just like feeling like, oh man, I really eked it out, and because I'm always like, okay, yeah, you know what, takes me 1 or 2 times, cool, it takes me a few times even, but like a few dozen, I'm like, kill me,
yeah, yeah.
um, so
That's a good point about the strategy about thinking ahead, especially for a boss rush, um, which seems like a really an obvious thing for the influences of the from for the
oh
influences of
yeah,
the
I mean that's a
game,
total Mega Man thing.
but also like a really good test for how the game works. And I really do think that the sort of dynamic leveling up of the weapons and how it goes back and forth based on getting hit there. I think there really is something innovative about that. It's
Yeah.
just not quite something. It's not quite there yet for
Yeah,
me.
exactly. I mean, it
But
leads
it's
to
it's
bad.
onto something.
Yeah, it leads to bad patterns, right? Because what I found myself doing in the final cave before that was parking myself in a place where there's basically an enemy generator, and just like leveling the weapons, any weapons back up. And it would take like 10 minutes. Just like standing in one place, you know, getting my missiles filled back up, getting, powering up one or two
Yeah.
weapons back, and like getting healed back up
It's
in order to
yeah.
go to the next section. And it was just like tedious. And like I was there saying, if at this point they had just a like come back in 10 minutes button and you'll be all everything again, I would hit that and go do something else for 10 minutes,
Wow.
right? Because it's just like
Wow.
I'm not doing anything interesting here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm standing in one place, you know,
You're
uh,
grinding.
I'm grinding, right? I'm grinding, but I'm not. It's not like I'm getting anything I didn't have.
It's not permanent.
I got stuff I lost. I'm getting it back, and it's just like So it just felt a little.
Like souls.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It
Yeah.
didn't. It doesn't feel like that. There's no
Yeah.
gamble. It's pure.
Well, I think that right. It's not a push your luck situation. I think to your point, it's not permanent in that if you were able to grind and get a level and then keep that level, but you can always go all the way back to one to zero basically.
Yeah. With your weapon.
If you're not careful, so you can grind and with some bad luck.
Well, I mean, then what would happen is I would die in another section on that level, and all of it would have been for naught anyway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's
So
like, oh my god, and so I did it like 3 times. I did that exact same thing in the same spot. It's just like to then die in the next, and then another big challenge right after that. I mean, I finally figured out, oh, this is how I should tackle this challenge. So there was some learning that had to happen, but it still led to a bad pattern where, I spent half an hour of my life or so, shooting straight up in a spot in this game.
yeah, path of least resistance,
Yeah, exactly.
kind of leveling up. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I mean, I know it's not the most fun way to play the game, but also, how am I going to get past all this? Like, I don't know what's beyond that thing that keeps killing me. So I want to be prepared because I don't want to have to do all of this again and again. Like, I don't want to get to that point and then die. So yeah, it just leads to those kind of patterns naturally.
Yeah.
So I think you'd want to find some other thing. It was the only point in the game where I was like, I really wish I had a save state here.
Yeah, and that's another tool that they could have used.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, or maybe on easy mode, there's save states that are not there in other harder modes.
Right, something like that.
That could
Yeah,
have
it
been
would
an
be
option.
another
Yeah.
balancing,
Yeah.
mechanic. But yeah, I mean, we should kind of turn more towards the charm and stuff, the things that we really really do like. You mentioned that witch earlier, and I love running around in the sand pit or whatever it's called, sand fields, the sand whatever sand zone,
Yeah.
where you have to get all of her dogs and
Yeah.
and they're piled up. I got them all at once. So I had a pile of 5 dogs on my back that I'm running
Oh,
around.
I didn't know that happened. I thought you had to bring them back at one at a time.
No, you can just go. I just went around and was picking them up because I'm like, well, I mean, I can interact with this dog and it goes on my back for the first one, and then I'm like, well, I wonder where the other one. And I just went and found all the other ones. So I had all 5 of them, and they kind of shift around on your back as you're moving.
Oh, that's great. Did
They
you
have
get
a
an
little.
achievement for that?
There are no achievements on the Switch, so no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm getting achievements for things that
Oh yeah, there are no
that are pretty
achievements.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one was a funny, goofy thing. But he supported it. Like, it wasn't just that they were kind of just stacked. Like, I don't know, barrel full of monkey style, right? They actually would sway as I moved. So it was like I was actually balancing them on my back. They didn't collide with the world or anything like that, but the world was designed in such a way that it could mostly accommodate all these dogs on your back. Maybe a couple places where it couldn't. So it just was like, it was a distillate of like some of the charming moments of this game, of just like of course you can do this, and of course, like, they all kind of sway a little bit when you stop and when you jump and all that stuff. They kind of move a little bit. It's not a lot, but it's motion, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just charming to watch. And that's kind of like, I mean, the game is a charm offensive, I think. The fact that your robot friend is named Curly Brace is just like, chef's kiss.
Yeah.
um so
Yeah, it's the setting, the world, this the story, though light, I think is really charming, and even the writing is clever at times, and they have the themes are good. There's a lot of talk about you being a nice person and you're helping, and then there's the trope of you're a robot who's lost his memory and you were designed to do something else that they kind of reveal over time being pretty
I mean, I think
terrible.
a robot losing its memory really connects with you, Tim, but I don't. What is that?
Fair. Yeah, exactly. No, that's a good point. Uh, yeah, it's just like it's the droids or robots, right? That and their are when their memory's wiped or whatever, right? Like that's such a but then you feel as a player the agency you have about or you're thrust into this character that has a history, but then of course you're going to help the Mimiga um, uh, as a player, not just to finish the game, but also probably just because they're cute, and so there's more depth there in the story than I would have thought, and there's so many characters too. Like I feel like basically every section you're introduced to new characters, at least one, and yeah, Curly Brace becomes an important part too, and then some of them die.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I mean, King gives himself for I guess
Yeah, and
Sue,
then
maybe.
when you
Yeah.
level up that weapon, you
You
see
see
his
his
spirit.
echo. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Super cool.
but then Toroko,
Yep.
she enrages, and then you kill her.
Yeah.
you know, and they just have a nice fade out. Like it's handled pretty well because I think that the professor dies, um, Jenka dies, or Genta, I forget what. So they
Yeah.
just kind
Whatever.
of do
Yeah.
this fading out. So
The
it's
Witch of
it's
the Wastes. Yeah.
handled in an abstract way, but it still is touching.
Yeah.
It's just a whole part of the game and apparently, I mean, maybe they talk about this by the time you finish in more depth, but this war and the red petals and forcing them to eat them to enrage, and this whole history about this war. I still don't really obviously know exactly who the doctor is or what's going on there. I assume he's in the end boss battles section or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. He is. Yeah.
Um, I still don't understand what Balrog is though. Is he a robot? He's a toaster. I don't know. He's
I
hilarious though.
believe he's a robot. I think that Misery basically converted him over. Like, I think he's a robot.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's it's not really clear, but
It's
honestly,
just adorable,
yeah,
like
yeah,
I
he's
I feel
big and
like
boxy, and yeah, he's
yeah,
just a really
his
good character
archetype.
design. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I think his archetype I think there's some anime out there, or maybe manga I think that type of
Oh
robot,
yeah,
a big toaster looking robot, is an archetype.
yeah, it's kind of
So you
a
can see
trope.
the
Yeah,
influences there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I haven't watched a lot of that sort of thing. I mean, my anime is very thin.
Oh, mine too. No, and
Yeah,
it's I just more anecdotal.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Others can chime in on the direct influences, but it's just really there's heart in the game. Like you can see what he has done to put into it to make the game what it is, and I'm just really delighted and surprised. And there's just a lot of attention to. You mentioned the dog stacking. There's just a lot of attention to detail that he especially like the freedom. It's obviously was definitely a lot of hard work for him to do it the way he did in his free time and all that kind of stuff. But there's probably for him a bit of freedom there too, because he could just do what he felt he was passionate about,
Yeah.
at any given day. and you can tell. I mean, we talk about it. We probably talked about it last episode, but we talk about it often. This was a very yes game, in my opinion. Um, just as much dialogue as there is. He wanted a custom sequence, as you mentioned last episode. He would put that custom sequence in. Like, I'm thinking of when you get to the core, and you're like opening doors and lowering elevators and the water,
Right. Right.
and then yeah, there's just the current section after that when you get into, I forget what it's called, but there's like all the currents happening
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
pushing you through, and then you come out in the fishing the
Yeah.
fishing
The fishing
pond
hole. Yeah. Yeah. That's
in the
amazing.
village. It was
Yeah.
just so brilliant.
Yeah. That was a really wonderful moment that I was not expecting at all. I had no idea. Yeah. I mean, he put a lot into everything. I mean, I made a note, just as an example of the sort of charming stuff. I mean, when you meet Curly Brace, you've got this kind of frenetic, uh, for me, MIDI-esque music kind of going. I mean, very kind of warm 8 or 16-bit music. And when you see her, it stops. And like,
Mm.
and then she runs off, and once she's off screen, the music starts again. It's just it's like the robot's heart has stopped. Of like, oh, there's another one of me. And although I don't think at that point she's a robot yet. I think you learn that a little bit after, but you don't know at that time. I guess the main character's name is Quote. I saw online. I don't think
Hmm.
it's. I don't remember seeing it in game, which makes me wonder how many other punctuation marks there are of robots out there that he considered. But because Balrog is not one, unless it's one in German. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Like a key on a keyboard or something. It's
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
look down at his keyboard and what am I going to name?
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah. It was pretty
that's
good.
pretty cute. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And there's just like, each upgraded weapon has a different state, right? It's not just more powerful. It actually sometimes has some behavioral changes.
right.
Discovering that the fully upgraded machine gun, if you fire it down, can turn into a jet.
Yeah, I didn't discover
You,
that till very late, but yeah, that's cool.
yeah, I mean, you can just basically jet around like you have a jetpack on it, but it
Yeah,
also does damage to things below you. So it's like just these little touches.
yeah,
And then I haven't upgraded it yet, so I don't know if it gets any better. But if you get the jellyfish juice and bring it back to the assembly hall fireplace,
yep, yeah. You get the
eh,
bubble,
the
right?
bubble thing, which
Yeah,
I don't know how good of it doesn't seem like that
yeah.
good of a weapon,
It's not that
but
great, but it is
but
cool.
but it's like, oh, because you had to get that juice so many times, and like, oh, I
Right,
got to
right.
go back but I have to do this, right? And the
Yeah,
fact that he had something in there,
yeah.
and it's taught you that stuff. So I mean, I still wouldn't fully call it a Metroidvania, really, in the traditional sense. I know why
Yeah,
people call it
I
that.
think it's a misnomer. Yeah.
Structurally, at least, right? I think it's in the family. It's a cousin or something, but it's, yeah. I think, and the reason I bring it up is I wish there was more of that.
Yeah.
There were a couple times, like
Have you found the map?
yeah, I did
The
find the
map
map. Yeah,
tool? Yeah, okay.
yeah, and I have used it, and
I
it's helped me on a couple clues,
Oh,
but
it didn't really help me. So, um it's kind of funny cuz by the time I got it, which is, you've kind of done a whole bunch I didn't find it near the beginning of the game. I don't think you can jump to it. I think you need to sort of levitate or whatever, the
I got it pretty
You
early,
got it
like
pretty
first
early? I
quarter.
think I came
Yeah.
Oh, no, I came all the way back from the water. That's when I got it. It was after I went into the
Oh,
fishing
no, no,
pond.
I had it almost. Yeah, no, I had
Oh,
it the
okay,
whole.
no. Yeah, so
But I don't
maybe
remember
it would have been
where
more.
how
It's
I
in the
got it.
village. It's right under where you get the charcoal, I guess, or maybe where you would whatever. The town hall building that's on the right side of the screen. Underneath there's a space. There's a building at the bottom, and then there's a space you can kind of jump up to under there, but maybe I just never came back and tried to make the jump again. Yeah, if I'd been able to hold, you can hold the jump, I think, longer at some point or
Oh, yeah.
something like that. And then, so maybe I could have gotten it then. I just never, I had forgotten that was a jump I could make. So I
It's
can.
not that great of a map. It
It's
really
not super useful. Yeah.
it helps with macro, like have I
It's good to know, like, oh, is there something up there, or is there something over there? Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, once I got the jetpack thing, the double jump or whatever, I went up in the main, in the village. I was like, "Oh, you can go up." And then I got up there and I was like, "Oh, wait, this is where I started."
yeah, yeah. I know.
There's like,
I
"Oh, this
did the
is the
same thing.
first
Yeah,
the first cave," which like you said, it sounds like that there's the final cave, but then the first cave is where you start. So yeah, and I mean the world structure, teleporting is teleporting, so it's like you get a little bit of a gimme by having that part of the structure. But generally, like elements like coming back into the fishing pond, or um, he does some good reuse of levels. It doesn't feel too retready to me. Like there's
yeah,
times when the way. So for me, it's like item placement and level design stuff has been really like the dog level. I think specifically was really because each dog was a different challenge,
right.
and it was if I had thought to myself that I don't need to go bring them back one at a time, it would have been better for me because
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's much more of a fun level than if you do it that way. I bet.
yeah,
But that was I love that level from a structure standpoint, from a light puzzle standpoint with the dogs, and he was just really really creative about how to leverage a very simple key mechanic. And as far as like a game that's all about keys that aren't keys, I think just masterclass in that stuff, like
yeah. Really
creating the
good.
bomb,
Yeah,
getting the pieces
out
for the
of
bomb.
bubble gum and jellyfish juice and charcoal.
Yeah, yeah,
Standard bomb making equipment. Really.
yeah. On which there are definitely a few themes that are a little bit, let's just say I don't think Nintendo would have had them. I don't know if you if you slept in the bed with Choco, I think her name is, in the
No,
room with her.
I did not. No.
Um, I don't know, maybe not even on the first time. You might have to do it a couple times. All of a sudden, I got an achievement that, what's it called? I think it's called Ladies Man,
Oh boy.
and
What
you
is this,
get,
God of War in here?
yeah, exactly, and you get, and she's sleeping in the bed
Oh boy.
after you wake up, and you get an item that is her lipstick that does nothing.
Wow.
So yeah, I just wanted to call that out. And then it's like, yeah, I mean, when it's your game, you also can do whatever you want. And so it's,
Yeah, I didn't that one didn't even occur to me to try and find. Yeah. That is
yeah, one of the other achievements is called Doggy Style. And I think,
oh,
yeah, that's where you
that
get all the
that might be
dogs
all five dogs climb. Yeah.
or
Okay.
something. I forget.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, I beat a boss when I had the dog
Oh, okay.
on my head.
I
Yeah.
did too. I think I
Yeah.
had 3 or 4 of them at that point. Yeah, that's funny.
So
Okay.
he's having fun, or somebody's having fun,
Somebody's
but
having fun.
it's also tricky. you
Yeah,
gotta
yeah,
you
yeah.
gotta be careful.
I mean, that stuff, may have come in later because there wouldn't have been
Yes.
achievements on the Windows version. That would
Yeah,
have only come in for
could have
Steam,
been
basically.
the other company that helped him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Nicholas.
publishing.
Yeah,
Um, but anyway, yeah, it's just like it's a delightful game, um, and it's the fact that it gets so hard and it becomes difficult is not like, again, like, I get it, and that's totally okay. It's just, like, I'm not going to be for everybody because it is one of those games. But I you asked me last time about platforming. I still the physics and the momentum and the friction or lack of friction
yeah,
is still not my favorite, but it's really just a taste thing
yeah,
because you know I love seeing players play these kinds of games with this kind of platforming, because you can see them become really masters at it,
yeah,
especially
yeah.
just like the like quick jumps. And yeah,
I got a lot better at the by the end, with one exception area, which was the final bosses, and I'll explain that in a sec. But I would basically hard stick in the opposite direction of my jump as soon as I landed, and that cuts your momentum immediately. So you like, as long as you're like really on it, you can actually stop on a dime, but you have to exactly hit that. And that took me a while to just kind of get into the habit of doing. Like there were a lot of times where I would just like sail right over something and be like, okay, I'm going all the way around to get back to that exact same point so I can fail again. And it took me a while to get around that. At the end of the game, I don't know if you have I mean, you probably do. In the upper left is where the health and the weapon scale is, right? As well as what weapon and all of that. The On my TV playing the Switch version, the end of the game, you're climbing up through these boss battles, and the jumps are on the left side of the screen, and in the two that you have to do, the final jump before you actually jump into the next level area is actually hidden by the HUD element.
Oh no! What?
So like the block that you're supposed to land on, as well as like obscuring the character for a bit while you go up there. So I'm jumping up there and I'm like, well, trying to land on this block I can't see with a character I can't see, again and again. Like that was another thing where I'm just like, are you kidding me? Come on. I just want to hide the HUD now so I can jump. Because it wouldn't move. It doesn't move the camera higher, at that point, because you're leaving the screen. You've reached the edge of the screen. It can't go any higher. There's nothing to see. So I get why it happened, but it was also like, just the frustrations I would have with jumping were just really highlighted when it's like, oh my God, I just need to get to the next room. We could have made it a staircase. I'll just walk up the staircase. I don't have to jump. So yeah, it was another little moment.
Wow.
But it's the sort of thing where, again, he didn't do these boss rooms first. I'm sure they were near to last. And by then he was awesome at the jumping. Like, he just could do it blindfolded, right? I mean, he wouldn't have even, maybe the layout was also different. Screens in 2004 were not widescreen. Maybe that HUD element was somewhere else, or I don't know. There's a number of things that could be different from that original version. But it is like, did no one think of this, in one of the many ports over the last, whatever it is, 21 years?
Yeah, it could have been caught from, especially from playtesting. And it sounds like something that, something like the Nintendo process would have caught, right? They would have avoided it. There is, I don't know if it helps in this situation, but if you nudge one of the sticks, for me at least, I think the camera nudges. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does, but you can't. In this screen, there's a ceiling.
You can't go above it.
You can't go above it, right? So when once you're up there, you can't go any. There's nowhere to move the camera. That's when you go out, when you're outside, because you're actually outside on the outside of the island at that point, right before that. And as you go, if you go up there, the parallax is really wild. That you're like, you can see all this background of like clouds, I guess, in the background, maybe some trees or something too. So you're like, and the parallax effect is quite extreme. So like you tilt the camera up a bit, or you jump up and you levitate a bit, and it's like you can see a lot. Suddenly it's like, wow, the thing I'm jumping from is actually getting really low on the screen, and I'm seeing a lot of the parallax. It felt a little weird, but I don't know. I've never been on a floating island, so in the sky.
What are you talking about? You've been on so many floating islands
in the sky.
No, I mean like in Final Fantasy VI and
whatever. But not a real one with real parallax, Tim. So. Did you have any other things about the Nintendo? You've kind of been dropping them in, so I didn't.
Well, the reason I keep bringing them in on the difficulty topic is that I wanted to hit that we've talked about every time we play one of their games, but it's really interesting to play. I guess, and I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here a little bit, because I hadn't realized that as far as its ports go beyond the first, freeware or PC version or whatever, that all of the other versions were Nintendo.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know. until we started playing it. And so then that kind of leads me to that's obviously interesting, and there's some reason for that. But also, as we've talked about with their games, they still are largely unique in that they don't have difficulty levels,
Mm.
and it's actually just dawning on me now that the Souls game don't either.
No, they don't. No.
And that they put that what I'm, the important one of the, I don't know if this will be a takeaway for me, but one of the important things I'm reminded by and I'm pulling out of that topic is ways to control player difficulty. Not, and I don't mean in settings like Celeste does, or like you're talking about with, you were talking in pre-show about another Metroidvania game. Sorry, my throat's weird today. So there's like settings ways you can do the sort of usability side. But in the game design, building in ways to give scalability to the player to achieve difficulty in different ways. And we've talked about the obvious one, that the revelation from Ocarina of like choosing to take a heart or not. But I don't even mean that. I mean in the moment to moment, 30 seconds of fun. How do you scale that, or in the way a boss is designed, or what weapons you use, or whatever. And of course, with Nintendo, they try to hit this sweet spot because they don't have difficulty levels of the ramp up. So you're teaching the player and training the player over time, right? So they don't feel, so they have the skills they need when they need them, versus hitting you with a wall and forcing you to learn through trial and error and dying.
Right.
Like, I don't think Nintendo's goal is to make you die a lot. And you do die in a Mario game or whatever, but their goal isn't to teach you by death. I don't think. And
No,
there's
no,
some
not
of them
generally.
are, but
Yeah. Yeah.
generally it's they want you to kind of always be on that. The sweet spot of any balance and tuning is that we've talked about many times, is you want to almost lose, you want to almost fail all the time,
Right.
but you will still succeed. So you want to feel that tension. And so it's just reminding me how good Nintendo has become at that somehow. And then when you have a game that is a third party game, albeit indie, on their platform, but feels like it could be, it's like it almost feels like it could be a Nintendo game in a way,
Yeah.
but is leaning into this sort of harder core difficulty, I guess I'll say, philosophy. And I didn't think because I like difficulty levels, and I like that games give players options on how to play their game if they want to make it harder or whatever. But I didn't think I'd miss the Nintendo sensibility as much as I do in this game.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? Of sort of
Yeah.
like
No, it
that sort
does.
of care and attention to that.
I mean, it doesn't have some of the macro difficulty, sort of support of particularly the platformers, right? In that, in Mario, you don't need to get all 150 stars to beat the Mario game, right? You could get,
Yeah,
right, you can get maybe half that many or whatever it is. So you can do some difficulty selection just on the things that you're good at. It's like, oh, actually, I'm really good at these sort of timing based ones, or I don't know, finding and getting the red coins quickly, or whatever it is. And that's a little different. Unless you're going to go and get all of them, you kind of are self-selecting, like,
right.
especially like we played Mario 64, neither one of us got all of them, and we got different ones. Probably, I mean, we probably had a lot of overlap, because especially the early levels are easier, et cetera, and so there's not going to be a lot of difference there. But at a certain point, it's like, well, I went and did more of these challenges on like the ice level because I like them, or whatever, and that sort of macro control in the player's hands is another way to do it, and it's a lot more difficult to do in a sort of a Metroid style game, Metroidvania of some kind, right? So I think that, or more linear game, we'll just put it that way. It's not that they're specifically linear, but this game is kind of more on the linear side of
Yeah.
that kind of of that dividing line, and there's no really, I mean, I don't, I didn't find any sort of like I can opt into this battle or not types of things.
No, it's pretty Spartan. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a
I mean,
hint
a
of
wall
that.
is a wall in this. There's
Yeah,
no way
yeah,
to, yeah.
yeah. You got to get over it. Yeah, there. I did see in the credits a character who I don't think I saw, and so I don't know if it's cut out of an earlier, easier difficulty level.
There are there are different endings to the game, which I'm
Oh, okay.
intrigued by, and I
Yeah.
don't know what that means exactly, but um, maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, it could
Um,
be. I mean, I think you have the option shortly after where you are to basically leave the island um and not go and do the bosses I did. So there's possibly just an early out where you're like, okay, I'm done. Like this is where I get off.
hmm,
And
I th-
I don't know because I didn't do that, so I don't actually know
yeah.
which way it would go. But that's that there was a character who there was a choice point where a character literally asked me like, "Do you want to go with me?" And escape, and I said no.
Ah, I see. I
So I
see.
had a
Yeah.
yes no choice there, and then I didn't speak to that character again after that, even though I could have, because I was using the map. I'm like, oh, I should go up here, and that's how I found kind of this other area where the game ended for me, which felt like the sort of preferred ending.
Hmm.
Not the other one, but
Yeah, you
but who knows? Yeah,
save the island or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, not exactly, but yeah. The
okay.
island the island crashes, as far as I
Oh,
can tell.
right. Well, that yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that
You
there's a
save the
point.
Mimigas, yeah, I think.
Right. There's a point when you're trying to crash it. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
You
yeah.
gotta hack the core. Gotta destroy the core, man.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which is a plant. Which is yeah. Yeah. It's really a fascinating game, and yeah. And I'm hoping that my points about difficulty are not coming off as harsh criticism, or that I didn't like the game or don't like the game, or that I'm trying to pit Pixel and his work against Nintendo, because that's not really the point either. I think that it ended up on Nintendo's platform, which is wonderful, and I think it really deserves to be there. And I think it does it holds itself up in the same category. It's more of just like kind of me verbalizing and coming to terms with the different philosophies,
Yeah.
and as I'm thinking through it and like having these on literally as we're recording on the fly, realizing things like the Souls games don't have difficulty and they have the scalability in other ways. Like you can grind if you want to, or you cannot. Souls level 1 characters or whatever it is. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of like options there. And then I was just realizing Hollow Knight doesn't have difficulty levels. I'm thinking of, but they
I
do have optional stuff. To your point, right?
Right,
So
yeah.
so it's like if you really want to commit and make the game easier for yourself, you can go and do some things to do that if you so choose, or you can play like Kyle plays.
Right,
uh,
yeah. Well,
uh,
let's be clear. I can't play like Kyle
no,
plays,
no, you have to. Right, right,
right.
right. Oh, and I mean,
I mean,
again,
one could, but
right, right.
I cannot.
No, 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 we can't.
Yeah.
And yeah, somehow I've been able to work in both Souls and Hollow Knight into this episode, so I'm happy about that. I just need to talk about Metal Gear next. But the to that point, to contrast it with Hollow Knight versus the mechanic in Cave Story of the item leveling and how it can erode very quickly. Um, at the point that I have gotten to in Hollow Knight, I have optionally powered myself up so much that I feel much more at ease in the game. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have so many upgrades and so many things that I have made myself more effective as a character. So that is how I chose to deal with the difficulty part of it. Yeah. So
Right,
yeah,
yeah. I
it's
mean,
just
you have basically different slots you can equip other, sorts of things that are like, oh, I have more health because of this, or I can do this kind of attack that cuts through enemies much more quickly for magic points or whatever, and things like that. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
that.
Well, yeah, my needle is fully upgraded. I have all of the all of the lives or all of the life pips and all that, and yes, and I have all of the charms, so I can basically
Charms. Yeah.
spec myself as needed. So you have a lot of flexibility. Yeah, again, brilliant game. But I don't think Hollow Knight exists without a game like Cave Story. I'm sure Cave Story, thinking about it in 2004, thinking about it as an early indie platforming Metroidvania-ish game, and we mentioned some of the other ones that we're not going to play in that era that probably people were really being influenced by. You can see the magic, right? Where people, we talked about Fez too, where these other indie developers, unbeknownst to them, probably have really had this game be a cornerstone to that journey. So
Yeah.
it's really special, and I just the character, the charm of it, you know. There's some squeaking nearby, dog squeaking. I don't know if
Oh,
that
yeah.
comes in.
That's all right.
I just like the thing that I was the most surprised by is just that it has a story at all, and it's just how charming everything is. It's
Yeah.
just really, but
Yeah, it really
also
is.
like there's a gravity to things. There's because it's actually the themes and what's actually happening to the
The Mamiga.
Mimiga, um, is really rough. People, and characters die, so it's charming but also heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing you ought to do, and I'm not going to go into any kind of detail with the music, but one thing I discovered today after I'd finished playing, I was just kind of looking at the other things on the main menu. There is an option, and I'm sure this is the case in the Steam version as well, to switch the music into different styles. Same
I
melodies.
saw that. Yeah, there's a mindset to remastered
Okay,
right
yeah. So
now.
that's a little bit like a little less hard MIDI. It's still MIDI-ish, but it's a little softer. It's a little bit more higher samples, better samples, and a little I say softer, just a little gentler on the transitions, a little
Hmm.
less like 8/16-bit and more, something a little higher bit rate. There's one called Ridiculon, which is almost like a sort of, I mean, it's still sampled, but it's like a heavy metal kind of treatment ish,
Oh, nice.
like screaming guitar, kind of thing for the melody. They have the original in there. I played the whole game as Cave Story Plus, and they have one other, uh, which I can't really distinguish meaningfully at this point. But I will say the soundtrack in general is awesome. So
It's yeah, and just a little bit of kind of reading that I had seen. And it sounds like it's kind of known for it too. But
yeah,
um, yeah, we probably didn't talk about the music enough, but it is stellar. Specifically, I'll mention a piece because I just heard it recently. Because when you come back to the village the
mm,
second time from the pond we were talking about,
yep.
and everyone's gone, and like the S has hit the fan, and the dragons have hatched and stuff. The music,
The
the
eggs have hit
village
the fan.
music has changed, and it's much more ominous and sort of dire, and it actually, yeah, it hit me there too. That was actually really nice selection and tone. So yeah, it's really good.
Yep. All right. Well, we are gonna call it there, unless you have anything else to throw out there, sir.
Um, no, I think
Think we got
we
it.
hit most of them.
The We are going to do takeaways not at the end of this game, but I think at the end of the next game, even though they are not uh super closely related. We're just kind of doing a couple of sort of 2D, sort of vaguely platformery, whatever sort of games. And the next game we of course are playing is Spelunky. We'll do takeaways. I could do a whole episode of takeaways about Spelunky, but we're gonna try to confine it to 3. But we will do that. We haven't decided yet whether we will do Spelunky over 1 or 2 episodes. Kind of gonna depend on Tim, um, because I have no perspective on
You
that
could do a
game.
whole podcast
I could
on
I could do it just myself on Spelunky.
Spelunky.
On each level, I could talk about the Golden Path or whatever that's called. I forget what he calls it. I've read Derek Yu's book about Spelunky, which is in the boss fight games. If it's a good book, if people are interested, it talks about the development, and kind of how he came to his decisions. Really interesting book, actually. You should read it too, sir, if you are at all inclined.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I hope we get to talk about that some then.
Yep. It's been a little while since I read it, but I will try to remember. But it's a good book. Anyway, let's turn to the outro stuff. We love to get your reviews. Haven't had one in a minute. Go ahead and put that up there wherever you listen to your podcast, or if they just allow you to put a thumbs up. We think we're a thumbs up, so go ahead and do that. Or shoot us email at devgameclub@gmail.com. We're also on the web at devgameclub.com, and you can find my co-host twitching at twitch.tv/
Tim Longo Jr. with the JR at the end.
What's the Outer Wilds progress? I dropped in briefly this week, but you start late for me, so I never see very much.
Yeah. Good. No, I mean, I believe I am still making good constant progress. That is a fascinating game. It's still a confounding game to me where I'm at, but shout out to Lost Lake. He in between the two sessions of my stream, he played and finished the game, I think, in one weekend.
Oh yeah.
And loved it as well. And so, and I know Kyle and some others consider it to be one of their favorite games of all time. So it's not there yet for me because I don't think it feels like one of those games that kind of like once you put all the pieces together, there's sort of revelations, I think. I don't know, but but I will say I had two, the VOD probably is still up there if you're interested to watch, but I had two amazing moments happen last time. I mean, I've had actually every session, there's been some amazing moment, to be honest, like the first supernova or whatever, but there was a moment when I crashed into a planet that I did not know what kind of planet it was. I'll just say that, and it blew my mind. So yeah, it's a very, very special game. So I'm still playing that.
Cool. Yeah, that's a real fun one. And you've heard some of the names mentioned there that you could find over on our fan run Discord. There will be a link for that in our show notes. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton. And I want to say at this point, he has you can search his name out on Bandcamp. He has an album of all the podcast music he's made over the last 7 years or whatever. Mostly for podcasts that he does, but included in that album is one Dev Game Club. So,
really?
Yeah, you can support Kirk directly there if you'd like. It's got the triple click stuff and the old split screen one, and some others. There's like some variants too, I think, on some of the ones. Strong songs, of course. So anyway, that was commissioned originally by friend of the cast Aaron Evers, and our logo, that Discord, our merch store, all by Mark Garcia. Have fun being turned into a weapon of death this week, and good night.
Good night.